Blog Talk Radio.
Radio 1. I'm your host, Pastor Steve, the Music Man Turner, and we thank you for taking the journey with us. This is the program that spotlights positive people doing positive work while serving a positive God whose name is Jesus, and we ought to shout about it. Listen, tell your neighbor, tell your friend, we're on the air. Call in at 1-914-205-5353. That's 1-914-205-5353. Our subject matter today is undiagnosed, the state of black mental health. The state of black mental health. Before we get started, I want to give a shout-out to God and a shout-out to the memory of my lovely wife, First Lady Leora Queen Turner, who helped me put this program together. Let's see here. Let's see if we got a caller here on the line here. All right, can you hear me?
I hear you well.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. I had some technical issues last week, so I want to make sure got my guests on board. Hold on a second. Jeremiah 29:1. God talks about the plans that He has for us, which is good. Today we are again honored to have. Supposed to have Reverend Fred Shaw, national activist, and Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, the icon of D.C. Let me make sure. Who's on the line?
This is Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, and you're so kind. I like that introduction, the icon of D.C. I'll take that. Hi, Pastor Turner. It's so wonderful to be back with you and your wonderful listeners. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's fantastic. And these listeners, I discover, go all the way as far as the Ukraine. This is actually global. And we were given the mantra of Radio Station of the Year. So that's pretty fantastic, too. Let me read the scripture real fast.
That's awesome.
It's 29. Yes, indeed. Just what I thought about giving up. Verse 11 of chapter 29. Says, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you. This is God talking to the prophet Jeremiah. Says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and go and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. God don't want you to do half-stepping. He wants you to do all of it. So He's got peaceful thoughts in His mind about all of us and not evil, which is a good thing. And the last verse here, verse 14, I will be found by you, says the Lord, and I will bring you back from your captivity. He's talking about physical captivity, but some of us are captive in our minds because of fear and because of abuse and because of trauma. He says, I will gather you from all the nations and from all the places where I have driven you, says the Lord, and I will bring you to the place from which I caused you to be carried away captive. Wow, that's heavy. He's the answer, the cause, and the solution all at the same time. He's just bad like that, I tell you. So let me ask you a question. I came across some figures, and it said that at least 32% of black folk are have gotten treatment. The rest are undiagnosed. And who is Dr. Rhonda Hamilton?
Now, there's a question. Who is Dr. Rhonda Hamilton? Dr. Rhonda Hamilton is a God-fearing, humble woman who is on the streets in Washington, D.C., where I hail from and has been educated and loved dearly, trying to help our people recognize the reality of stigmas in our mental health and in our communities, and the impact that it's having on our children. So I am, as our dear Martin Luther King said, a drum major for justice, as they say. I'm out here fighting the fight to try to elevate the consciousness around the mental health conversation and education. I'll leave it there.
Okay, alrighty. Now, before we get into this a little deeper, I've seen pictures of you. You're a model-esque type woman, very sociable, highly intelligent, and all that. And so my question, I guess, what do you know about mental health? You don't know about mental health. You got no experience with that.
I can always expect you to set me up. You set them up to knock them down. Thank you, Pastor Turner, for your lopsided compliments. How about that? Rhonda Hamilton, to be very humble, and I find that in sharing my story that hopefully I will motivate folks out there to share their stories. Mental health in our culture, to be serious for a minute, isn't something that we embrace. As a matter of fact, we have a tradition of rejecting things we don't understand or trying to figure out how we can project onto someone else. And so when we do that, we find ourselves in unhealthy and uncomfortable spaces when it comes to mental health. My personal story and testimony is that I am proud to be the daughter of schizophrenia, as I always reference myself, because I want to humble the conversation right out the gate. My beautiful mother was much more than her diagnosis. And sometimes when we understand mental health from the lens of what we physically see and what we don't understand, we miss the opportunity to know the person. And every person, regardless of their diagnosis and realities and exposures, has a right to have a higher standard of living than what we see happening in our communities and behind closed doors. Being the daughter of schizophrenia, I'm very sensitive to the many children in our nation, across this nation, that are trapped in these unhealthy circumstances. One, when there are adults who are plagued by the reality of having to navigate mental health challenges and be parents and have children who don't understand. And then to have children who themselves are going through and suffering and not realizing what they may be dealing with, and then to try to deal with that from a shameful standpoint, it's just a formula for unhealthy outcomes. We do the work on the ground, helping to raise the awareness, helping to link families to solid systems of coverage and treatment so that they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We walk into many homes daily that have holes in the walls from the frustration. You know, they're dealing with the frustration of whatever the realities for them are surrounding mental health. And a lot of times when we can't have these comfortable, knowledgeable, honest conversations about what we don't understand, our children inherit these unhealthy patterns of behavior. So I am proud to say that I'm the daughter of schizophrenia because I walk this life with a different lens, with a different understanding, and knowing that at the root of everything I feel that we're struggling with as a people, as a society, we've got to come back to the conversation of what we understand mental health to be. And when we can understand the layers that come with mental health, then we can probably comfortably begin to peel back and have honest conversations. There's so many different levels of trauma in our community, and the mental health, undiagnosed and diagnosed, is the byproduct of what we have continued to have to overcome in our communities. And the research is just finally coming out to catch up to the reality of who we are as a people and what we carry. I'm also the proud daughter of drug addiction, which is something else that plagues our community, and which is also a byproduct of undiagnosed and diagnosed mental health realities. My dear father was a military man, and for many years we understood PTSD, post-trauma
Traumatic. Mm-hmm.
Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm sorry, I had a brain fart. Thank you. We've been using that acronym very differently here with all of the gun violence, but a lot of the times when we hear PTSD, we're thinking about the military connotations and not so much as our everyday exposures to the realities in our communities, those that are surviving realities of gun violence and other social determinants. So, yes, I am very familiar with mental health. My mother's mother was someone who also dealt with mental health realities as well as her brother. So in our family, we like to recognize that our legacy has been to be a family that is surviving the realities of what mental health does, whether it's diagnosed or undiagnosed. And so over about 7 years ago, we took up the charge, our nonprofit did, to come on the ground and to start some conversations and some outreach to be able to help more families make it through.
What's the name of your nonprofit?
Well, wouldn't you know it, with something as complex as mental health, I'd have 2 501c3s. I didn't set it up for that to be the case, but Am I Mother's Keeper is our mental health intake and case management vehicle, and that was started a little over 7, almost 8 years ago. My beautiful mom here, who you hear me speaking of, after being institutionalized for over 2 decades in the St. Elizabeth mental institution here in the district, she battled back and fought through and found treatments and medical understandings that helped her to be able to find a stable way to live her life outside of an institutionalized means. And in doing so, she was able to go to work with the government through a contract, through a disability contractor, and she enjoyed her work. It gave her a sense of stableness, but the reality of having a stroke before she turned 65 and having to retire from work early, her new norm became something of a challenge, because obviously anyone who deals with schizophrenia or have relatives that do, the prognosis for positive outcomes is to be able to create routines that keep them busy, keep them occupied, and keep them feeling useful and needed, acknowledged. And is that not what we all need as human beings? And so when that was taken away from her, we found ourselves having to deal with a system that is very stigmatized when it comes to reality of citizens showing up, applying for resources, having visible voices and hallucinations, and maybe not recognizing or representing the normal understanding that we think in society. So when she went down to get services, I saw that she was met with such a level of ignorance from a young lady, and it frustrated me so, because no one wants to see their mom disrespected or talked down to. And what I witnessed, Steve, in that moment, Pastor Turner, was that she was trading her dignity for these services that she was entitled to. She had done 20 years in the system, came out and worked 20 years outside of the system, all with visible voices and hallucinations. And she's got to go down here and trade her dignity to get her Medicare because she's had a stroke, and now she's just trying to keep her medicine going, or get Medicaid because she wasn't old enough for Medicaid. I'm sorry. And so the reality of having to navigate the system in order to find her new norm, and to not have this citizen understand or walk in her shoes, and to just define her by what she saw before her. And I needed her to understand, as well as I wanted the nation to understand, this is my mother, and she's much bigger than any diagnosis or misunderstanding of such that you could convey upon her that would have her walk this earth and have to dumb herself down to be able to receive what she's entitled to, because you don't understand the reality of what mental health is, and that it should not diminish her in your eyesight.
That's a form of elder abuse, actually.
Well, depending on who you're talking to, because that stigma is really, really thick. And for those that don't recognize what we're talking about when we say stigma, it's just the reality, the mark of disgrace, to look upon someone as if they're not worthy, they don't make the cut, something's wrong with them, and the reality of not realizing, dealing with mental health and mental challenges, you're already the hardest on yourself because you've recognized those flaws. And then to go out and have society not recognize or receive you, accept you, and all you do is exist, there's a problem there. And so, I realized that me being me and being fortunate to have a big mama in my life and knowing that my journey is my journey just like others' journeys are theirs. But our children, it's so dangerous when we don't understand how to navigate these mental health realities, and our children have to understand it through their lens. And a lot of times we're not humble enough to realize our responsibilities for having these uncomfortable conversations. And so I gladly show up. So you ask, who is Rhonda Hamilton? Who is Dr. Rhonda Hamilton? I'm that little girl that was trapped in a family of mental health that had I not had others around me to recognize my true greatness and worth, I might be somebody different today just because I was a child of mental health.
Even Hollywood has commercialized this scenario. In the movie Soul Food, you have an uncle. They say he's not quite all there. He's got some issues, but the uncle saved the day. That's where all the money was.
Well, you know what?
TV.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting when that's true. But a lot of us, when we look at those types of storylines, it's always humorous first, right? So it was funny that there was this uncle, because one, we could relate to it many times because in many of our family structures, we have a family member or two that we can identify with, and we want them to stay in the background and just be quiet when people come around, or just don't show yourself type thing. And that's that shame or that fear of not knowing how they're going to react. Are they going to embarrass us? It's just a whole lot that comes with that. But like you said, at the end of the day, he had something to give. He had something to give. And they didn't even know that he would be their answer or what they needed. And a lot of times that's a great metaphor for what we're speaking about. Many citizens that I've been able to work with that are challenged with mental health realities, many families are very intelligent. And we're trying to fight the stigma of not recognizing the need to do whatever is necessary within reason and of good health understandings to be able to find your balance. Never mind what someone else thinks. Everybody deserves to live a quality and a higher standard of life. But that starts with us being able to recognize and acknowledge who we are, where we are, and what do we need to go forward. And a lot of times we do that in silence, and we suffer. And as they say, hurt people. There's a myriad of reasons of why we're dealing with the gun violence and the drug addiction and so many other things in our community. But if we can't show up to the tables with open hearts and open minds, we're going to keep these repetitive cycles going. And that's the danger that we live with in the Black community. We suffer in silence.
Already. We don't want to be casualties of war. Let's see here. I understand that you have also created, out of your intellectual mind, Mental Intelligence TV. What in the world is that about?
Well, we've been talking around it the whole time, and basically the reality of getting our more people, just not in our communities or in our households or our co-workers, but across the nation, we've got to change the conversation around mental health. And to do that, we've got to find creative ways to be able to keep it out in the forefront. It's easier to identify it when it's coming behind the narrative of a shooting or, a citizen that has acted out and living in the street on drugs or what have you. But the reality is that we've got to be able to talk about mental health so that we can get to the preventative understandings. See, we don't spend as a nation as we should in the preventative measures, and we certainly don't teach from a preventative measure. We're very reactive. And so Mental Intelligent TV was my brainchild because, one, coming through a pandemic, and let me back up. Before a pandemic, we came up with the Mental Intelligent TV because we realized that we had to find ways to amplify this message in our communities, right? The healthcare disparities are such that we realize that certain parts of the population are already advanced and have resources on a level that they can go and get what they need, or maybe they have different behaviors around it because of it. In our communities, we're always lacking in resources, in many cases knowledge, and so we don't, there's a saying that says if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. And so what we've got to do is to find ways, those of us that we call ourselves change makers, right? Those of us that are standing in the gap and wanting to be able to challenge the status quo, we've got to be responsible and accountable to knowing these narratives so that we can package our messaging in a way that we can still succeed in reaching the masses. And that's what Mental Intelligent TV was for us. And when the pandemic came around, it just made sense that we were in that space, because then it opened up the world to humble and realize that there is something to this mental health thing. And so what I like to do is take it to the next level and get folks to look at it from the standpoint of mental wellness, right? Because we do preventative measures to try to stay away from heart disease and diabetes and cancer and things like that. But who talks to us about the preventative understandings of mental health and mental wellness challenges in our families? So it's just about our behaviors and about our ability to be able to learn a new thing. And we realized in order to be effective, we had to be able to use the virtual television vehicle and other means to reach folks. And so repackaging it so that people don't look at MI as mental illness, because that's an immediate turnoff. We look at it from a mental intelligence standpoint, and we point out all the realities of how we could be living preventatively to be on top of our mental health challenges and our mental wellness understandings.
A wealth of knowledge. If you'd like to spend some time digging into the mind, the mastermind of Dr. Rhonda Hamilton of D.C., give us a call at 1-914-205-5353, 1-914-205-5353. But you better come correct, because it's no joke. Hold on a second. Got another call here. Hold on. I'm glad to call Elevation Radio 1. All right. Let's see here. Elevation Radio 1, how can I help you?
This is Reverend Frederick Shaw.
Lord have mercy. It is the national icon of, might as well call him Dr. Frederick Shaw. Sir, how you doing? Welcome to Elevation Radio 1.
I'm doing fine. I'm glad you sent me a text, because I was in the middle of an event and I was thinking we were on the radio at 4:30 today.
Negatory, sir. 5:30 is where we are. And while I got you here, enlighten some folk here who are listening all across the globe, all the way as far as Ukraine. Who is Dr. Apostle Bishop Reverend Fred Shaw?
Reverend Fred Shaw is just a simple servant of God. I do a lot of things because I'm a lot of places. I'm the president of the Inglewood South Bay NAACP here in Inglewood, California. I'm the Western Regional Director over the Mental Health Justice Committee for the National Action Network. I'm a member of the Baptist Ministers Conference. I'm a member of the Southern Bureau of Ministers Alliance. I am involved with a lot of different organizations and stuff. And the main organization, though, is the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, where we expose psychiatric abuses. And that's a major death. Such things like electric shock. We know the truth on what's going on with that. The mass drugging of our children with these so-called attention deficit disorder drugs and things like that. We know what that's all about. We have exposed that the chemical imbalance in the brain is a lie. It is not true. Now science has proven us to be right, even though we've been saying this for the last 25, 30 years. They now are coming to agreement that they make $15.6 billion a year on something that does not even exist. So those are the type of things that we expose. We talk about what is going on in that field, how it's attributed to racism, how it is undermining religion, in particularly Christianity. So it's a wealth of things that we have well documented that is going on, but the commercials and things like that make it difficult for people to decipher the truth.
Heavy. Say hello to Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, sir. She is on the line. She was giving some of her. She's the CEO of the Mental Intelligence TV here in D.C. She's also has two nonprofits, My Mother's Keeper, and she's also a youth and elder activist. She's a former mayoral candidate. The line, this program is heavy with superintelligence today. And if anyone wants to get some wisdom, you ain't got none. The Bible says if you lack wisdom, ask somebody else who has wisdom. You need to call in at 1-914-205-5353 and get some wisdom today. Now, I understand that you, what caught my attention was electronic shock therapy of our youth. I'm appalled by that. Tell me about that.
Well, unfortunately, they are electroshocking children 0 to 5 years of age in this country. And not only that, but what could be worse is the fact that they're electroshocking children before they're even born because they're electroshocking pregnant mothers. Now, I don't know how you justify that, but even the FDA has commented on it. So it's no dispute that it's being done. In fact, they'll tell you if you went on the internet right now, you would see where it says, oh, the person is given a mild dose straight out fabrication because they use up to 460 volts of electricity through the minds of adults and children. And what they do is they keep cutting it up until they have a grand mal seizure. And most people know that grand mal seizures cause brain damage. So why would you, in the name of science, use a method that causes as much damage or more than the person is in the treatment for? So, that's what we're looking at. Electroshock, it's like the same amount of electroshock that is considered torture during wartime is what people are getting when they're so-called patients. There's no real difference at all.
And what are they saying it's supposed to be for?
Say that it's to deal with depression, but I would say that a mother who is pregnant that has electroshock and wake up and find out that she has lost her baby, because the FDA talks about that it causes miscarriages. So if you wake up, you're depressed, and you find that you have lost your baby, then I would imagine that you'd even be more depressed. And just because you might be able to, let's say that I'm thinking of suicide and you electroshock me and I lose my ability to think, then, okay, maybe I won't kill myself, but what quality of life have you given me?
Amen. Amen.
Let me ask
so these are the type of things that I expose.
Okay. Let me ask you, you're a whistleblower, sir. You're a freedom fighter. Dangerous man.
Absolutely.
So,
that's exactly what I am. And I come from a family of freedom fighters. My grandfather was one of Marcus Garvey's best friends, and people thought they were brothers. So I grew up with it. That's why my name is Frederick Douglass. It's like it was like that. We got children in our family named Marcus Garvey and all of that. So, I grew up with this stuff. I don't know anymore or know better than to fight for the rights of our people.
Amen.
Well, you got another co-freedom fighter on the line here. I was trying to figure out who she looks like, but Harriet Tubman, but she looks better than her. So.
No such thing. I look just like her. What are you talking about, black man? Let me correct you real quick. I look just like her. I'm honored. I'm honored. Hello, Reverend Shaw. I've been very patient to hear you. I've been very excited to be on the show with you. When Pastor Turner extended the invitation and we looked at all of the things that you're into, I'm so honored and humbled, one, to hear about the advocacy and the fighting that's going around surrounding this mental health reality. And if those of us that know, we know the history that this so-called psychiatry stands on. We know that way back when, it's funny you bring up these wartime treatments. That's very much what they stand on. They were cutting off limbs back in the day if that would help these soldiers get back to the battlefield and not really dealing with the mental health properly. And when we are present day in such a state of health inequity, education inequity, and in economic inequity, it is very dangerous for us to be silent. And so I, too, have that fighter in my blood, and I'm so honored to know that there are folks such as you that are out there fighting the good fight, because the reality of all that we're dealing with, I liken this mental health crisis also to the understanding of the money and the profits that they're making on us in the dialysis arena. And I suspect that if we continue to rally around and speak up for these causes, that we'll find that that's the case across the board when it comes to matters of health and racism and the systemic reality that, these are the fights that we have to fight in order to be able to call it out. And so I thank you for your work, because we're not a people that is comfortable in these spaces having to talk about these things. And so thank God for what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. And just to say, out here, they call me when they do their mental health first aid training and stuff. Then I get a call from the minister. We want you to come so you can listen to them and then you can tell us the truth. It's like they know I know my stuff. I've debated psychiatrists from Morehouse University to UC Irvine to Harvard professors, and I got the same record as I used to say Mayweather, Terrence Crawford. So it's a pleasure though to hear people who know what's going on and understand, because most of the time I have to spend time teaching, and I love it when there are people who already know what I'm putting out there. That means we're becoming more and more aware.
Oh, sir, yeah. I can tell you that I'm on the phone with Attorney General's offices here in D.C., and when you raise the question to them about their unlawful practices and the fact that we should have citizens that are filing a myriad of civil suits against the fact of the mental diminishment that they're dealing with the failure of the systems, they shy away from it because we're not in a position of majority. And as a people, we're just not there yet. But if we knew our power in this capitalist society and we were able to reach them in their wallets in these practices, they would find themselves quicker,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, as we are talking about, since Dr. Hamilton mentioned something that I'm dealing with myself, is you may not have considered, Reverend Shaw, the situation that most dialysis patients deal with, the abuse inside of the treatment center, the condescending conversations that when they rip you off of insurance, Medicare, a lot of times being treated, taking more fluid off you than what you would like them to do, and extending the treatment times so they can charge Medicare more. One lady, I think, when her husband died, she was asked to sign over her house to keep treatments going. And another gentleman, I think, in Florida, he only wanted a certain amount of fluid taken off because he was dealing with holistic health, and they demanded to take more fluid. I guess they charge. As I asked one nurse, do you charge by the ounce, or do you charge by the length of treatment? And so when he only wanted a certain amount, they demanded, we want more fluid out you. And when he would not deal with that, they called the police on him. They said he was disturbing the peace. And so what they normally do is once you have spoken up, talked back, demanded to be respected, what they're trying to do is actually ship you off to the ER. And that's actually premeditated death, because in the hospital you can only get treated every now and then while your limbs swell up with fluid, and you basically die within the fluids of your lungs. And some folks have just gotten given up to the point where you will die if you don't have treatment within 10 or 15 days. A horrible death.
Wow. Well, I'm a diabetic, and I'm hoping to not end up on dialysis. So I'm doing everything I can to prepare myself. But what you're looking at is a common thing across medicine right now, because it's not about the patients. It's about the boardrooms. It's about how much money they make. And
absolutely.
So we have to be very careful, because they will do unnecessary treatments, good and bad, when it comes to us, and especially us. Because, see, when you look at mental health, when you look at the medical field and stuff, since, the 1700s, they've looked at us as inferior people. 50% right now of the medical students believe that black people's skin is thicker than other people's skin, so therefore we can tolerate more pain than other groups and things like that. This is the type of foolishness that they're putting down on the communities. So our athletes like Serena Williams and different young ladies, they're in the hospitals having babies, and they can't get with all of their money, they can't get the treatment they're supposed to get. And so we got to start demanding more instead of being so dependent upon. We got to question things. Well, okay, so you're giving me this for cholesterol, but what can I take naturally? What reduces cholesterol? Oh, nothing might help. So we have to look at things,
Yeah. Now you're speaking my language now, and I advocate from a preventative standpoint. We don't spend from a preventative standpoint, and we don't educate from a standpoint, and we don't understand the many levels to the reality of it. We just know it in the lens of schizophrenia, bipolar, what they tell us, the depression. But the reality is that we've got to be able to, like you said, ask questions, and we've got to be able to stop being willing to take it third party. We are dealing with so much in our communities, and, that stigma. And I just feel responsible for bringing up the subject of the suicide realities in our communities. And when we are counseling or in workshop settings with our teenage and our youth populations, trying to understand their realities around it and their thought processes. And one of the things that we consistently hear, Reverend, is that the generational divides contribute to the youth population who are finding themselves struggling and challenging with these suicidal realities. And I myself participate in many roundtables, and one of the things I see us struggling with as a people in that generational divide, I heard a comment that what our children have to be depressed about. They have that video game and the social media things. Our ancestors survived slavery. So what? Our kids can get over it. And so I just feel that unless we're able to have these responsible conversations involving mental health, we're going to further divide ourselves from what our youth are dealing with and what our outlook and its perspectives are from a historical standpoint. And so, again, I thank God for you, because the only way to get through is to go through, and we must have our soldiers in the forefront fighting these fights because they've had such a head start on us.
And let me tell you something about the suicides. what they will not tell you, even though we hear it all the time. See, as long as they let you know, they don't have to give you a formal dissertation on it or anything like that. But the truth of the matter is, there is a definite connection between all of these kids, which right now we have 6.1 million children on psychotropic drugs. So there's a definite connection between these psychotropic drugs and suicide. In fact, if you listen to the commercials, they will tell you that the side effect is suicide ideation.
Mm-hmm.
So if our kids are committing suicide and they're being put pretty much on these drugs from the cradle, then we need to take a different look at their approaches to mental health, because right now, based on everything I've investigated, read on the subject, it appears that they're making people mental health patients for life.
Absolutely. 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 And while we're talking about it, I mean, since we're going to go there, let's just go there. We know from the research year after year that the largest population annually that seeks mental health or doesn't get the mental health that's needed is the LGBTQ population. And when you start attacking our children in our schools and understanding that when you talk about medicines and pharmaceutical companies profiting and making them lifetime patients and realities, we have to look at the whole. We have to look at the whole. All of that is connected.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. So we have to educate ourselves, and we can't just read what Master tells us, because
Absolutely.
I remember when we were kids. Well, when I was a kid, I'm probably way older than you, but I was 68 years old. I'm 68, and when I was a kid, I remember reading in the books that the slaves were happy. Well, that's because the writers...
Come on now.
No, I'm telling you, I remember reading in the book. I remember thinking that Nat Turner was a bad man who killed people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. Sure did teach us that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I never knew or thought that he was just being a freedom fighter for his people. So
come on now.
History is written by the winner, and history is written by the golden rule. Whoever has the gold, make the rules. And so
Absolutely.
that's what we're looking at. So we can't get a hand on the homeless because our policies create homelessness.
Absolutely. Come on now.
Hold on a second. Wait a minute. You're out of line, sir. This is a wholesome Christian program, and you are causing trouble. I will be in trouble, sir, with this program. You keep talking along these lines. And I blame Chili Mose, who referred you to me. He didn't tell me that I would be dealing with two gangsters all at the same time. Proceed.
No, God bless you for even being brave enough to bring it to the forefront. I am, again, very appreciative of what you're doing, Reverend Shaw, and being able to be in those spaces to get the people's attention on the levels necessary. But we as a community and those of us on the ground, we've got to do better to come up and meet you guys with this conversation. I keep saying that when all of us, or majority of our voices are raised and elevated, then they pay attention because they want to know what's going on with them people, what they mad about, what they frustrated about, because they're always handling us. And when he talks about systemic policies keeping us in these homeless realities, I'm always questioning our local government. How can you justify your budgets on mental health when you got folks sleeping in the street, folks without stable housing? You can't be telling me that you feel good about your mental health protocols and realities and accountabilities. It just doesn't go.
Well, I spoke to President Joe Biden's appointee over homelessness and veterans, and he mentioned how they believe that they're doing a good job. And I said, how do you measure that if things are getting worse? Because up here in California, and I know this is the sunshine state where everybody want to live because of the weather, our homeless situation is out of control.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
And these people are on these – one of the things that we got to know that we're dealing with homeless, whenever you put them on those drugs and they abruptly come off of them, they're at risk of having a psychotic break. That is not being told to anyone that's taking the medicine. You're supposed to have informed consent. They'll tell them, and you'll hear people say, oh, I can never come off my medication. What kind of medication we creating that you can never come off of?
Exactly.
You wasn't on it until you got to the doctor. Now you can never come off of it?
Yeah, well, we're a nation that doesn't even spend on preventatives. So, goodness well, we don't want to be in those spaces of healing. What would that look like for their bottom line?
Can I interject something here?
Oh, go ahead.
Can I interject something here? All right. This is my program. Okay. Get on my knees. It makes sense to watch. Sometimes you're gonna watch the dummy TV. It makes sense to watch some stuff that's educational. And I turned from the sports channel, and I was watching some MPT, and I saw that they had back in the Second World War, they gave the government. I think at first it was in another country, Germans or whatever, gave their soldiers drugs, LSD, and then America actually gave drugs to their soldiers to increase that effort to get the super soldier, that he doesn't get tired, doesn't get sleepy, and he has no conscience, and he can fight and kill as more folks. And so they drug their own soldiers. And the movie that I'm thinking about, where Denzel Washington, Manchurian Candidate, where they experimented on the soldiers, and they were actually programmed. What's the guy's name? The guy used to be a wrestler. He was governor. He had a show called Conspiracy Theory.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
You're talking about McMahon. It wasn't McMahon, was it?
No. What's his name?
He's a big fella.
He's a big guy. He was a wrestler.
Randy? What is it, Randy?
You got two of them.
No.
Kane also became governor or something, but it was another guy before that. He was, I know. I couldn't think of his name either, though. I know who you're talking about.
I can see his face. So what he did was when he was walking with someone, and the guy got a phone call, and this is where I get in trouble with the alphabet soup in D.C., the FB and the CIA, and it's so they when he picked up the phone while walking, somebody came and said Rosebud, and his whole demeanor changed. His foot was going straight; it went sideways and all that, and he could have been programmed to kill. So when you have all these people now killing people, shooting up in malls and all that, how do you know that they're not programmed? Since they had the COVID shot, you don't know what's in that COVID shot. They don't know what's in it when they were trying to get you to sign up to get it. There's no label on the bottle. Why would you take it? Oh, I'm sorry. And,
why you take it, because they have us surviving. When you're in survival mode and you're trying to keep a job and you don't have the luxury of choosing the freedom fighter route, you're going to go to work, and that's why they make the decisions the way that they do. They bank on us making the decisions that we're going to make because we're in survival mode.
Well, even at hospital down in Texas who came up with that rule, the doctors there said they made people come to work and they had COVID and they were sick. He said, one guy said, he's a doctor, I took all the shots, the booster shots, and I still got sick. That stuff ain't doing nothing. But the hospital administrator made it that way that you had to take it, and now every other hospital is doing the same thing.
Well, if I can tell you a secret about it, I met up with some doctors who had went before Congress and the U.S. Senate, and they told people about ivermectin. I tried to connect up with community leaders and have it to where we could do our own distributing of it, but shot it down. They said it was only stuff for animals. They did all of that. Now, I knew they were lying because I had heard the research on it. Plus, when I was doing it, I tried to set up with some doctors, and the doctors were afraid. No doctor told me it didn't work. They just kept saying, no, we can't do that. They won't fill the prescriptions at the pharmacy. They won't do all of this stuff. And now they recently come out, and they said, oh, ivermectin can be used. Oh, ivermectin is successful. They knew the success rate of ivermectin and that other one that the president took. They knew the success of those things way back then, but that wasn't the intention. So some of us, and I guess you guys were in on it too, we didn't take that shot.
Tell me about it. Come on, Jesus.
Can I do some theatrics here? Okay. See, y'all, I can't hang around y'all. Y'all get me in trouble. And so, so we're up on Capitol Hill. We got the cure for it. You got a cure. What? Okay. Whatever you do, for God's sake, don't let no niggers figure this out. Because we ain't trying to save no black niggers. We trying to save ourselves. And that's it. And
real, but it's true.
If I get in trouble, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton made me do it. Okay, now let's go back to the conversation.
Man, that's
no,
great.
You're speaking some real stuff, and that case can be made across the board. As the great Reverend mentioned, we can't cure homelessness because it's not in the cards to cure homelessness, right?
That's right.
We have the ability to address the health inequities of our people, and it's not them, so why is it an issue, or why would it be, and then the frustrating thing is that these are decisions made with black leaders in place, so that tells you that we're still fighting that system from yesterday because they say that we've progressed because we put a black man in the White House, but the reality is even in the nation's capital, when you drive those communities, you don't see the progression, and we're still leading the charts in the negative decline of our health, our life expectancy. You talk about shocking pregnant women when we have a maternal mortality rate that no one's speaking to. I'm looking at the enrollments in the school systems falling off because we came through a pandemic. We've lost quite a few folks, and we're not producing as mothers as much as we had before, and so the enrollment rates are starting to show up. On top of that, we've got gun violence daily. So this whole systemic reality is hollowing out our families in more ways than one. And then you just add on top of that the diagnosed and undiagnosed mental health realities. We've got to speak it. The time is now. The time is now.
You say you must speak? Well, if you must speak, and I suppose remain neutral as the host, but here in Baltimore we have a bobble-headed mayor, who spends more time stealing and embezzling and lying and making babies with other men's wives, if he could, if it was even possible. So I said a long time ago that his job was to destroy Baltimore City, and he's doing a great job. He can't keep any cabinet leaders, the 16 of them that he couldn't keep. He's got a police commissioner who made the biggest boo-boo ever. Not really a boo-boo. He decided not to, because basically Baltimore City PD a lot of times is racist. A Preakness horse race will have the police called out months in advance to race horses and have the good white folk come to the area where black folk live, and the Jews come down from the higher level upper apartheids down to lower apartheids so they can frolic and prance around. And the NAACP gives the black homeowners. I asked her one time, as the third vice president, what do you give to the black homeowners when they have Preakness and all that kind of stuff and have all the big hoopla and wild world of sports? We give them trash cans. Are you serious? What about the economic, all that money that's coming down there? And so when you got the NAACP being dumbed down because they were tied to the apron strings of the black mayor. He's a house niggas. That's what they are. And they ain't trying to do nothing. They got the field niggas, they got the house niggas. So they had the house niggas all dressed up, biggest criminals. They get a piece of the pie.
But you know what, Steve? You know what, Pastor Turner, I appreciate that. But on the same token, there used to be a day where the politicians had to come by and stop by the community first before they tried to get up in that office because they knew what it looked like. But the reality of us being so divided on the ground, and in D.C., I'm not sure what your numbers are in Baltimore, but as you've heard me say before, in D.C. we've got over 500,000 registered, but 300,000 aren't showing up. And so when you start talking about these systemic realities and these lopsided governing and these agendas and these gatekeepers and house and field nigger realities or what have you, truth of the matter is there's a large part of us that are still out here that can affect change that are not. And we've got to figure that out because it used to be a time when government folks stopped by the community first because if they went up in there wrong, they knew who'd be on their doorstep. And we've got to get back to being those kind of people.
Who's running stuff? Yeah, we're supposed to be running stuff.
Yeah, but see what happened was, and I got to include my brethren in this too. We went from the politicians kissing the ring of the minister so that they could get his parishioners to vote for him. We're sitting around waiting on the handout from the politicians.
Come on now.
But now we're from the one control to being controlled. And so that's where we started going wrong. In California, right here in Los Angeles County, one man took the Christian cross off the county seal. One person. I tried to organize a group of clergy to go down and fight and protest. And we just couldn't seem to get together. But somebody gave the order not to get it together. Because somebody gets shot by the police, we all can get out there when somebody get killed by the police, but those are the only issues that we're supposed to go on. And I'm scared of you, Pastor, because see, you act like you wasn't supposed to be hanging with us. Me and Dr. Hamilton, you act like you ain't supposed to be hanging with us, but you be saying some scary
rock and then hide behind us, right? Come on, Pastor.
Yeah, he be saying some scary stuff himself. You know what I'm saying?
Come on, Red, call it out. Tell it like it is.
Yeah. I'm sitting up here. I'm one of them
out
people
there in the forefront.
I can't be intimidated, and I'm feeling a little bit nervous. You know what I'm saying?
Come on now. You know we're going up against these folks.
Where is the Music Man's help here? Call in at 1-914-205-5353. The guests have tried to take over my program. It's a coup.
Look, Rev, when they start passing out them awards and stuff, our folks start getting soft. She done made it now, Rev.
Yeah, we made it.
Number one radio show.
We stood over looking out the window through one window at the ocean, and we think we made it.
We made it. We got to do nothing else. Look, Rev, what's wrong with them? What they unhappy about? We made it.
Hold on a second. Let me go to King James. Dr. Hamilton about shelter piece.
Oh, you going to the blue book on us.
All right, Reverend Shaw. Hold on a second. Don't let her influence you, sir. Don't let her influence you. Give us your number, sir. Folks want to reach you or talk to you. How can they do that?
They can contact me at fshawjr@yahoo.com and put your name, Pastor Turner, in there, or Elevation Radio 1. They can put either one in the subject line. Mm-hmm. You can use either one, and then that way they can contact me through my email. But it's fshawjr@yahoo.com, and they can go to a website where I get a lot of my information. It's cchr.org, and they can get a lot of this information, cchrint.org. And then they can look up my name also, Reverend Frederick Shaw Jr. They can Google me. They can find a lot of information on me. But if they contact me, I'll send them every website, everything that they need to do to find out what I'm doing, and I'm always doing something.
All right, that sounds fantastic. Let me give some play to my enemy. To Dr. Hamilton, who has just rose up against me. Kicked her heels against me. How would I get in touch with you, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton?
Absolutely. MIMotherskeeper.com is the one site for the mental health advocacy and case management work that we do daily in the nation's capital. And then healthydcandme.org is our website. That is our coalition of advocates. We're building a standalone trauma center to address much of what you hear us talking about on the telephone call here today. And if you're interested in joining us in our movement to Congress, because as you heard us mention, the dialysis is something that we are advocating for because we did not realize that in the nation's capital that in one of our wards, we have 8, but in just one ward, we exceed the national average for folks that are dying from kidney realities by 44%. And so that coupled with all of the other realities going on in our town and in our nation, because we are the seat of governance, we are trying to take 1,000 voices strong. We've got some local issues that are all embedded in this systemic failure of what we're seeing in these healthcare disparities, and right at the core of it is the failure of our mental health and our behavioral health systems in order that we can break the cycles that they keep us in. So if you're a freedom fighter out there and you're looking for a good fight to get into, mitv.fyi is our public service announcement website where you'll be able to sign up and follow what we're doing. I am local, and you can reach me typically throughout the week at 240-274-9436. And I will caution, I carry 4 telephones. I came off of a campaign run last year, and I've made promises that I intend to keep. And so every number that we have is still available. But you can reach me at 240-274-9436. If you're looking to get into a good fight, we need you. We need your voice. Now is the time. Thank you, Pastor.
Well, I also want to put a disclaimer out so you can't have no trouble through this program. She has a smooth voice. She's very intelligent. She's very attractive, but she has a husband. So don't call her phone number playing around because you'll get yourself in trouble.
Not a buffoonery. Look here, we fight the good fight. We want all our soldiers. We'll clean them up at the door. But you come and do this fight. If my voice brings you to the door, then come on. I know how to handle myself. I don't know this buffoonery. He talking. No, I'm just kidding, Pastor Turner. But yeah, I appreciate that respect. But more importantly, let's rise above all of that. It's not about how my voice sounds. It's about how effective you can help me make it be.
Okay, watch yourself now. You see what I got to do with Remshaw? Remshaw? See what I got to do
I'm
with
married.
She's a gangster.
No, my wife's crazy.
I say he's married. Leave him out of that mess.
Yeah, no. Let me tell you, my wife, I told my wife one day, I said, let me tell you something. I'm leaving you. She said, I don't care. I'm going with you. So I know she's crazy.
Oh, that's right. Where you think you're going?
How many years you been married to her?
Oh, I've been married to her for the last 8 years.
Okay.
Awesome.
You want to give her a shout out?
Awesome.
Shout out here?
My wife is actually the president of the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce. We've been friends for over 30 years. We dated 30 years ago, and almost, and then we weren't together, and then we got back together. And so, God taught me how to accept the gifts of a woman and not look at it as being nagging or getting on my reserved nerves and stuff, because it was revealed to me the day she don't want to do those things, that's when you're in trouble. That's
right. That's when you're in trouble. Amen. That's a wise brother there, Pastor Turner.
Okay. So
what they say, happy wife, happy life. Mm-hmm.
Well, whatever. That's a stigma. Okay, let me go back.
And I want to, Pastor Turner, I'm sorry, Reverend Shaw, Pastor Turner, probably out of line, but Reverend Shaw, you mentioned you guys out there in L.A., and I'm just wondering, we have a very dear colleague here in the Whistleblowers organization and does a lot of work on the Hill and is a very staunch freedom fighter. Her name is Marcel Reed. Does that name ring a bell for you?
I think so. I think
yeah.
I got to look it up. I think she's actually one of our task force members that I'll be reaching out to you. We created a task force. It's called Task Force Against Racism and Modern Day Eugenics. And I think Marcel's on as one of our task force members. Yeah. So,
it wouldn't surprise me.
What's wrong with ring the bell? What's wrong with Dr. Hamilton being a task force member?
The only reason she's not a task force member, because she just got to email me to fshawjr@yahoo.com, and then I will ask you, because I would bring you on when I bring her on, because we need to have Chili Moses on already. So we just need to coordinate so we can put the leaders together, because right now we got 140 of us across the nation, and I'm selectively just picking winners. So, you know, both of you qualify because y'all got the same spirit as me. You crazy. And, but, you know, so we'll go. Yeah.
And I tell you, we're hungry out here. They talk about this East Coast versus West Coast, so we can learn a lot from you all when it comes to this organizing and speaking up and rising up. We see what the SEIU out there is doing, and so we just want to be a part of that because we're here in this. They call us this crab pot, right? And the reality is that I see 300,000 people not voting as opportunity. They tell me that this is a democratic city, but when you've got less than 40% showing up, it's not. We have opportunity, and I think that we need to be connecting with these energies and these effective processes outside of our borders so that we can try to infuse our people on the ground. So I'm with it, sir, and it's an honor to meet you.
Yes, well, it's an honor to meet you, and it's an honor to be able to find regular folk that's out here talking real issues. And, you know, and I appreciate that. I really am caught up when I'm into programs with the stuck up. And, you know, so I'm happy to be able to, to be on this show with you two. And after you've done 300 shows, and I know you have because you was as comfortable as you can be in how you handle your radio show. So that, you know, I appreciate you.
We are glad to have upper echelon clientele like yourself, and I want to thank my good friend who I never met just yet, Chili Mose, baby.
Yes, Mr. Chili Mose. God bless him.
He said, you must have this brother on. I said, who is this brother? He said, Reverend Fred Shaw. And he sent me your bio and all that. And I was looking at the bio, and I fell asleep because it was like a movie credit. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I tell people not to put all that stuff in there, you know, and because I got more than that. But it's, you know, what all that matters.
I know that's right.
Yeah. All that matters.
Well, you know, us Northerners, we ain't buying into it until we find a reason. So sometimes you got to leave all that stuff in there. But you are a breath of fresh air, brother. You are a breath of fresh air.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And, so if you've listened to this program and you like what you have heard, I challenge you to hear it again, play it again and again. Go to Spreaker, Spotify, go to Tumblr, Facebook, LinkedIn, Podcast Addict. My goodness, there's so many different platforms, and spread it around to your neighbors and friends. We've got to become and get awake out of sleep, so we stop these folks from experimenting on us with our eyes wide open. And God help us that we're going to pay for it with our insurance, and you're going to experiment on me? I think not. All right, so give kudos and to the freedom fighters here who are still alive. We still got freedom fighters in here in this 22nd century, and that's the Right Reverend, the Honorable Reverend Fred Shaw, and Dr. Rhonda L. Hamilton. Good God Almighty, the person, the icon of the D.C. corridor and spreading itself over to Maryland and Virginia. God bless you. So that's a wrap. Thank you again. This has been Elevation Radio 1. The annoyance for those who are stuck up and those liars who don't like to hear the truth. It's been another episode. Well, what can you do about it? God is in control. Yeah. All right.
Amen.
Any last words? Any last words?
God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing. God bless Dr. Hamilton.
God bless both of you all, and you guys keep fighting a good fight, and I look forward to joining the ranks.
Oh, you're in the ranks. You're in the ranks. And all that. I think, but Reb Shaw, just before I go, I just want to ask you one favor.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hamilton has owed me lunch, and she has not fulfilled her duties and responsibilities. What say you, sir? How can you convince her?
I say Dr. Hamilton needs to, as soon as she can, come out here, have lunch with me so we can discuss it, and then she can go back and have lunch with you.
I like that.
I think that's a plan.
I like that.
That's a plan.
You see what happened when you jump out there with a real one?
I'm quite sure you will get the lunch. I'm quite sure you guys will get the lunch. You're close enough to each other. I'm quite sure.
Reverend Shaw, there's not enough food in the DMV area to satisfy this young man. But I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna glutton for punishment.
No, she did not. Look, what people have said about me that I'm always attending events where they got free food is not exactly true. And on that note, let me close this program out before people start believing you. Okay, it's been a real one. I always say keep your head up. Keep your head up. Keep your heads up.